Brought to you by bedroombattlefields.com, this is the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, Mark. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good, yeah. Enjoyed our Christmas get-together the other night. It was good fun. Thanks for putting that together.
Yeah, no worries. It was really good fun and well attended. I'm really happy we did it, actually. It was cool. In fact, actually, David on our server on the community reached out to me, and we're going to have a little chat in January, because he's saying, well, maybe we could make this a bit of a semi-regular thing. So we were just going to have a catch-up and see what ideas we could come up with, because I think with them being in America, and I think it all worked quite well with the times and stuff. So yeah, good opportunity to maybe make it a bit more than an annual fixture.
Definitely, yeah. And I really enjoyed the wee games that you put on. So we had Noel's Christmas presents, but it was Noel's as in the Frostgrave Noel's, wasn't it? GNOLL. Noel's Christmas presents. So yeah, that was good fun.
That worked well, actually. It was like a random encounter table where you had to generate a similar to rolling up your own Chaos Champion in Warhammer. It was rolling up your own Christmas present from a strange relative in some far-flung part of the fantasy world. That worked well. It was good fun.
And then what was the game called where we were looking at an Argos Catalogue from 1993 and trying to decide if the price of Warhammer, which was sold there, Warhammer Fantasy Battles 4th edition, was more or less expensive than a wide range of eclectic items?
Yeah, it was based on the Play Your Cards Right TV program with Bruce Forsyth from the 80s, 90s. And what did I call that? Play Your Argos Right. So a really brilliant pun there.
I really liked, I liked a number of the nostalgic products in there. We had Boglins, which I love to see them again. Battle Masters, which was also sold in the same catalogue, and that turned out to be like a $5 more expensive than 4th edition,
surprising that. Yeah. It must be that massive PVC mat.
Yeah. Aye, and a sort of wider variety of troops as well, I think. I'm not sure there would have been necessarily more miniatures, but you got like a lot of cavalry, you got cannon, you got an ogre, you got a castle.
So, that castle's cool.
Yeah, still got mine. But yeah, Battle Masters, what a game. That was great. I could probably get into just looking at old Argos catalogues as a hobby, because I spent a lot of my childhood, far before the internet. The Argos catalogue was where it was at, wasn't it? So
yeah, you'd lie on your living room floor on your front, having a look at it, and maybe circling. I remember my friend and we used to get the catalogue, and we had a challenge whereby you had to circle one thing on each page or each double page spread that you would have, and it became very difficult when you're on like the microwave page or something like that when you're a 9-year-old. But yeah, no, it was brilliant.
Yeah, we ended up deliberating the Corby trouser press, didn't we? Which did turn out to be more expensive by about 4 times. So
yeah, it was incredibly expensive. So whatever you do, if you are thinking about dismantling one in a travel lodge, then think twice, because when that shows up on your bill, that's going to be a hefty price.
Yeah, give Susan a call. But no, that was great. Thanks very much for putting it together. And yeah, it's always good to do the community stuff. And if you're new to the podcast, you'll be able to join in stuff like that in the future by going to their Discord. It's bedroombattlefields.com/Discord. Whilst I'm throwing links in front of the listener as well, I'm looking for folks. Time of recording, we're 21st of December 2023. So I'm looking for your input, the listeners' input about their favourite game that they've been playing this year. So there's a survey. It's very quick, take you less than a minute to fill this out. bedroombattlefields.com/survey, and I'll stick a link in the show notes too. But if you head over there, just let me know like what game you've been enjoying the most this year. What game have you been sort of either thinking about, planning for, playing, painting stuff up for. So let me know that. let me know as well some honourable mentions if you have any. And then miniature companies as well, like what miniature company have you kind of been most focused on? I'm just looking to gather this information together and see if there's any patterns, see if there's any stuff that I've never heard of before, selfishly. So I'll be looking to put some together about that before the end of the year, hopefully. You
That
filled it
sounds
in
good.
yet, Mark?
I did. I found it quite difficult to do in a way, because typically, I was sort of thinking, oh, I know what I've been playing most of. And then when I actually thought about it, I was like, oh, I wonder if I actually have. And I realised I hadn't played that many games at all this year. So, yes, it was good fun filling it in. But what it really spurred me on to is think, oh, do you know what? That's what I really want to do more of in 2024 is actually get more games on the table. I've been doing a lot of reading rules, thinking about games, painting, preparing stuff, making terrain, which is all brilliant. And I love doing all that preparatory stuff. But yeah, actually getting some games on the table was the one thing it highlighted to me. And it made me realise that I've probably been going back to sort of old favourites as well for games. And I'm quite keen on trying some of these. I haven't really got into it yet, but there's a lot more of these kind of indie, straight to War Games Vault, buy them as a PDF type games, aren't there, out there? And that's what I'm keen on trying out next year as well.
Yeah, I definitely. This is again, something I'd brought up briefly on the Christmas get together the other night there, but I was talking about, I'm one for buying rule books and rule systems, but I'm interested in now like swapping that for buying or accumulating like scenarios and stories. So I did pick up a copy of Sci-Fi Skirmish War Games, John Lamb's Head,
Oh yeah.
which that's a brilliant book. I was reading that just the other week there. There's 30 odd, I think, scenarios that you could use for, anything from Stargrave to Rogue Planet to whatever, Rogue Trader itself. So really good scenarios in there, and it just got me thinking again. This is something I've been sort of tossing about in my head, but it's not about the rule system. It's about what you're doing on the table. It's about the stories and the scenarios. So, I'm looking to just start accumulating like more ways to play the games rather than just how to play them, if that makes sense. One of the other like PDFs that's been kicking about as well that I've had a good look at is someone had taken the time to convert all the wartime scenarios into scenarios for Song of Blades and Heroes, which is a game that I really like. So again, stuff like this. I've seen as well that Joe McCulloch's got a supplement for Stargrave out. I think it comes out early in the summer, Dead or Alive. I think there's a basic version of it out already, but I think this is a lot of solo scenarios for Stargrave. So again, stuff like this, like it's not giving you new rules per se, it's giving you new things to do with those rules or with like other rules, because these things are always pretty easily adaptable, aren't they?
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that's maybe there's a bit of a move away from the kind of point-based pitch battle competitive army list building mentality that perhaps was coming in to the GW hobby when I was perhaps getting out. Because I'd already sort of left before things like Necromunda and Mordheim came out. So it was all quite battle game based, which I enjoyed. But yeah, maybe I didn't really used to think about scenarios particularly. It was much more around just build an army, have an army based, big battlefield kind of game. So yeah, the idea of having much more narrative. I wonder whether kind of as video games have got much more complex over the last 20 years, people have got that they want that appetite. They've got the appetite for something that's a lot more sort of story driven, really, and you can kind of follow a character and there's a bit of an arc to it all, rather than just Horoscope skiing.
Yeah. Aye, it's one of them, like, when you're trying out a game for the first time, and in the past couple of years, Robert and I have been able to try out a multitude of different systems. And for example, we did Mayhem, the mass fantasy battle game, and you're just trying it for the first time, so it's like, well, you go this army, I'll go that army. They're pretty even. Let's line up either side of the table and just go for it and see who wins. And that's fine for a first attempt when you're learning the rules, but I don't think you could just do that on repeat. Like, let's fight each other again with these armies. There has to be more to it than that. There has to be a why. and there has to be more than just kill more people on that side than they're going to kill on my side, sort of thing. So stories and scenarios, there's some great ones in the sci-fi skirmish game book. One that I was mentioning as well was this kind of novel idea. There's this sort of force field between it. I think it's to separate two different gangs. They're always fighting, so that this big force field goes up. But it's not very reliable, like the tech's not very well maintained or invested in, and there's the chance that, you've got your gang on one side, there's a gang on the other side, and they're trying to shoot through it, and some of them are actually trying to physically get through it, and, some of them are able to do that, whereas other ones are getting themselves blown up in the process. So wee things like that it just looks so much more fun and interesting, and the potential for the narrative and the stories that will come out of it, rather than just let's line up and try and kill each other.
That's really cool. You can imagine even adapting that, can't you? So like a fantasy setting and making it some kind of haunted river or something like that. And there's points where you can't cross it, and the fog comes in, or whatever it might be. You could sort of, but it's just the idea of creating all those variables. So the battlefield itself is a challenge you've got to overcome. That's cool. Yeah, I like it.
So we're talking about like going into a new year and what folks want to do, and you're talking about like a massive success for you next year would be actually playing more games. What if you could put a number on it, like how many games could you get in next year for you to think, well, that was a real success?
Probably quite a low number, being honest. I'd be more than happy if I could play sort of 10 times, like some really decent, good scenarios, good terrain, nice models, and maybe different systems. That'd be, I'd be delighted with that, and with different people as well. I've not tried doing any remote type gaming, not so much like the tabletop simulator stuff, but more, like a lot of the folks over on the Crown of Command group do with webcam, and someone's got the table. I've not tried that, but I was thinking about it, thinking, well, I'm sure that would definitely work if the system was right, and people who've done it have always talked very positively about it. So I reckon 10 to 12 times a year that'd be more than enough for me. Certainly a big step up on what I'm getting now, but also something that I could probably feel that I could fit in.
Yeah, I could even half that number and probably still be happy with it. Like 5,
I
6. Agree. I'd really like to. I'm kind of, the wheels are in motion, or the sails are in motion, I should say. We talked about Armada on the last episode, and I have actually made a couple of small orders on Etsy just to see what the quality's like. But cool. I won't need a high model count for that game, so I love the thought that by the end of next year, I'll have put together 2 fleets and at least tried the game out. And I'd be delighted to get, say, 4 or 5 good skirmish games in as well. So, from like the book that I'm talking about there, the sci-fi book, from that, the Mordheim scenarios, and from the one that Joe McCulloch brings out as well, the Dead or Alive, that might have scope for doing a couple of interesting things too. So I'd be delighted with that. And, I've got a lot of painting goals as well this year. I was actually looking back at, what did I get done this year? What did I get painted? And I was looking back through photos, and it's frighteningly little that, I've done in a year. I don't know if there's an actual reason for that, but like I got that Nurgle warband done, and I've got I've got some goblins done for a goblin warband. By the way, I've got my Jareth model now.
Oh, fantastic.
So, yeah, I was going to hold up to that. We're not even on video here, and we're not recording video, so that would have been completely pointless.
It's like a double whammy of uselessness.
Yeah, this is completely useless, but I'm holding it up anyway. But excellent. I got that on Etsy, so it looks cool. He's going to lead my goblin warband. The only cool. terrifying thing is, like, my daughter's obsessed with Labyrinth now, which is obviously my fault. But yeah, she's like 2.5, and she's just obsessed with it at the moment. So if she sees that, she's just going to go straight for it and destroy it.
Absolutely.
But what can you do?
No, that's wicked. Has he got the a finely modelled codpiece?
Let me just have a look. So, looking at his crotch, looking at a 28mm plastic Goblin King David Bowie crotch here. Great audio. I mean, there is detail in the codpiece, I would say. Not a massive amount of detail, but yeah. God, I've stared at that for quite a while. He's holding a crystal, and he's got a mullet, of course. Of course, he's
Absolutely.
got a mullet.
That's all you need, isn't it?
Yeah, crotch, crystal, mullet. So I'll get that painted
like the government hand face space.
So he'll be leading up my Goblin Warband.
That's a wicked idea. That's so cool.
Yeah, just a wee bit of something different, and maybe when she's slightly older, that'll be a good way to get her to tentatively play a game with me as well. So.
Well, it sounds like you're sowing the seeds in terms of the kind of fantasy diet that she's got, and I saw that you put some photos of a really cool place you went to. Was it in the north of England when you're on holiday? It was like a kind of
Lilidori, it's called.
Okay.
So it's in Alnwick. So yeah, the northeast. It was my wife. She knew about it. I know almost nothing about anything, but she said it was on the TV and that, when they were designing this place. I think it's kind of Scandinavian influenced, as these things often tend to be, but it was like trolls and goblins and really cool place. So she loved it. I loved it more, but I would recommend that to anyone who's sort of local to that area to get along.
That's cool, and it's like an outdoor kind of kids park in a way, but all themed like that. That's cool.
Like a huge adventure park. I went, like, adults are allowed in it and on it, so I was going down the chutes and everything.
Excellent. I might have to persuade my kids to go, even though they're like teenagers. Just
yeah,
just
leave them at the cafe, and you
exactly, and I'll just run around and go on things. Yeah, it's better than going to one of those like absolutely germ-ridden wacky warehouse things, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. You could go along dressed as Bowie and Labyrinth and just enjoy the park on your own.
Singing Magic Dance while you're going down the slide on your
own. That's an image, isn't it? In terms of painting then, what would constitute a successful year on the painting table for you next year?
Oh, okay. Probably... I actually don't want to paint too many miniatures because I've painted so many this year. And since painting that many, I've painted almost none. And so I'm kind of, I think that I'm going to try and set myself, if I am setting anything, but a quite a low goal so that I kind of really focus on painting. I've got this one warband, the sort of folk horror warband, that I really want to do a really good job on. And that's probably, I think that's about 8 or 9 figures. So I probably am looking at maybe trying to focus on doing far fewer things, being greater depth and doing a better job on them. So maybe sort of more quality over quantity for next year, I'd say. But also I really need to get round to doing things like putting all the bases on stuff, putting transfers on shields, putting flags on units. I've got lots of stuff that is not actually quite finished. It's nearly there, but it's not quite. So I think that would be something that I'd be really keen on, and also finishing off some of the terrain that I'm working on. So I think because space is so limited in our house, and where I've got all my stuff, it's kind of like a mezzanine loft thing in our house, and it's basically completely full, the small area that I've got, and it's got these stacks of really useful boxes that are now to the precarious height that they can't really go any higher without it being a major hazard. So I know I need to stop really and just kind of collect what I've got and then start focusing on things that require more like game playing, get-togethers, doing things like that, because I just don't really have enough room for anything else. So I just want to, but I want to get everything to that really nice level where I'm really happy with it. I'm wondering about going back and repainting some of the stuff that I did a few years ago, or touching up or highlighting things, but I don't know really, because I enjoyed doing it at the time. I was happy with them at the time. Do I need to change them? Will it make them better, or or is that worthwhile? I'm a bit unsure about that really, because I think from the perspective of did I have fun, am I happy, then maybe I'm all right with all that as well. So yeah, that's kind of my painting sort of hobby type side of the thing goal. So less is more this year.
Yeah, no, it's good ethos. Yeah, so I take it you're unlikely going to be buying anything then, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I didn't buy much this year either because the majority of the stuff that I painted this year I bought in the year previously. But yeah, no, so that's kind of got me in quite a good habit of not actually ordering too much stuff and spending very little money on hobby things. So I say a good habit. I mean, there's no such thing as a good habit, is there? If you want to buy things and you enjoy it, then do it. And if you don't want to, then don't. So, but yeah, I'm kind of pretty happy with that kind of the idea of consolidating really, but really trying to make sure that I do actually get some proper games in, and with as many different people as possible, and and ideally visit some things as well. That'd be brilliant.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, we'll revisit sort of later in the year about what's happening, if anything, with Bring Out Your Lead and whether we could do a
Mm.
get together there in early August. But that would definitely be a big highlight of the year if we could pull that together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just the idea of actually being in a space with other people who are doing it, it's just quite energizing, really, because just to see people doing stuff like actually not just through the filter of social media or the internet, but to actually see it in the flesh, it's quite a different experience, and it's yeah, really inspiring. But sometimes I find that when you look at highly polished stuff that's online, I find it a struggle to be inspired. I feel like it knocks me back a bit.
Mm-hmm. Aye.
It's just that sort of imposter syndrome thing, isn't it? Where you think, oh God, why can't I do it as well as that? And
Yeah.
therefore, is it worse? But it's no worse or better. It's just yours.
Aye. Aye. It's a different thing. It's like you watch the Premier League or the World Cup on the telly. It shouldn't put you off for going down having a game of fives on a Wednesday night or that. It's not the same thing. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I've got a lot of. I won't be buying much at all. The only reason I've kind of bought a few things was my transition to 15 mil for the big armies. So I'd bought a few things on that front, and I need a few boats, for my naval warfare stuff. But that's not a big investment or commitment, and I'm just really looking to make a big dent this year in those armies. There's 6 or 7 units aside, so 1 unit aside already done, and 1 unit aside I'm working on at the moment. And
Okay.
like I said as well, there's always wee bits and pieces for skirmishes, like 1 or 2 miniatures I'll just add in to the painting mix as well, and painting the ships up when I get them. But I don't anticipate that being a massive challenge. Like I'm not going to be putting loads of detail on them, but it's fairly sort of biggish areas, so I don't think it should take me too long to get those together.
I think they'll look good even with a basic paint job, won't they? Because they're just
Hmm.
cool little dinky things. Yeah, they've got loads of sculpted detail in, haven't they? And loads of recesses and washes will look really good on them, and contrast paints and stuff. I'm sure, yeah, they'll look ace.
Yeah, I looking forward to it. I think a batch of sort of 4 or 5 of them should arrive any day now, I would think. So I've noticed, like, when you order stuff on Etsy that people are printing, it could take quite a long time to get here. Like David Bowie there, he took a good few weeks, but I think, without knowing very much about 3D printing, I'd imagine people maybe just accumulate enough orders and then go and do all the printing in one go or something like that. Would that make sense?
Yeah, I suspect it is a bit like that. My next door neighbour, in his garden, he makes wooden things that people buy off him, and yeah, this time of the year, he was just sort of making absolutely loads. I can just imagine he has like big backlogs of sudden rushes on orders of stuff that people want. So it's not his main job. It's just something he does as a hobby, and that's probably these probably quite cottage industry type things with these 3D printers. And as far as I know about 3D printing, it is physically quite a slow process, isn't it? There's quite a limit as to how much you can actually run off. So if you get a run of orders, then there's probably not a lot you can do about it. And we're so used to things coming like within 24 hours that it's ridiculous, isn't it? My wife
Exactly. Aye.
bought some tights the other day off Next at 5 to midnight, and they arrived at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely insane. So yeah, it doesn't even seem like we've just got so used to that instant gratification thing that waiting for like a week for David Bowie to come through the post is, yeah, it's probably nothing really.
Yeah, even Games Workshop with their like Rogue Trader, this is going to take 7 years to get to you, and then it was there within a week, and I was
There straight
thinking,
away.
why did you say that? But
Makes it seem more exclusive.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Mark, I think you'd mentioned this the other night as well, was talking about like RPGs and miniatures and RPGs and stuff, and you being quite interested in that. So what was sort of that all about then?
Yeah, so I think I never played any RPGs as a kid, and when you hear people's origin stories in the hobby and people in the community, there's quite a lot of people have got in through sort of a role-playing game route, and then been attracted towards the really narrative skirmish games that now exist. So they're kind of, maybe playing Dungeons and Dragons and then have seen Frostgrave and think, oh, that looks cool, and they kind of come across that way. So there's definitely quite a lot of crossover. I'm sure there always has been. I mean, certainly White Dwarf back in the 80s before I got into the hobby. I think I got into the Games Workshop hobby for 3 years, perhaps, right in that middle point when they'd moved away from having anything to do with any role playing games, really, and stocking anyone else's stuff. And before they'd moved into any kind of, and it was just very sort of specific what they did. They were doing basically Warhammer 40k, and they brought out Manowar, and there wasn't really a lot else there. So I kind of have quite limited experience in terms of what I'd done. And role playing games is something I've always never really known how they work. So although I sort of always thought it was quite an interesting idea, I just didn't actually understand how they worked. But reading more rule sets for miniature games, and just sort of looking over the fence at RPGs, I've kind of realised that a lot of them are actually quite similar in their approach, albeit you're not necessarily moving things around and measuring stuff. You're more kind of, but you're using the dice rolls to determine outcomes in a way that's very similar. So yeah, I mean, of course, it all makes sense because I'm sure that's where a lot of wargaming came from, and role playing games all came from the same kind of source material back in the 70s, really. But yeah, I've just been looking around, really. I've actually picked up a couple of role playing games that Osprey have started publishing their own line of role playing games. They've got these games called, again, I'll hold them up to the camera that you can't see for the listeners who can't see them also. There's these two games by a guy called Jonathan Hicks. One's called Those Dark Places, and a new one that's called Pressure. Sort of ostensibly, Pressure is a sequel to Those Dark Places, but then it's not really a sequel. They kind of work independently in the same sort of universe, really. They've got a very simple 2d6 system. So you have four characteristics, and you allocate numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 to those four characteristics. So the thing you're best at, you've got 4. The thing you're worst at, you've got 1. And those are just modifiers to a 2d6 roll. And generally speaking, you have to get 7 to succeed. So therefore, if you're good at something, you're probably going to succeed more of the time. So really very rules light, but what it's full of is loads and loads of flavor and loads of really interesting concepts and ways of creating these very kind of low um, low end sci-fi games whereby it's similar to films like Alien or Outland or something like that, with sort of very kind of rough and ready ordinary spaceships with people doing pretty crappy jobs on them, and then maybe something bad happens and the power goes off and they've got to deal with something. So really cool games, and what I really like about it is it's just absolutely chock full of flavor, really. And coming back to your point about buying scenario packs and so on, Jonathan Hicks, the author, he's put loads of stuff out on Drive Through RPG, which are like £1 each, just sort of one-shot games that you can look at, one-shots of adventures for these systems, or any system really. It's all very system agnostic, so sort of let alone miniature agnostic. It's kind of system agnostic, and it's just jumping off points to create your own narratives, your own stories, and yeah, I'm just really interested in getting into it. I don't have anyone to get into it with at this stage, but I'm enjoying reading the books and being inspired and thinking about how I can bring more elements into tabletop games. And a lot of people recently on the Discord community have been talking similarly about incorporating RPG elements for campaign type elements and ways of expanding the experience and driving that narrative. So yeah, really cool.
What would you say then, like, makes an RPG game different from just a standard miniatures game? Like, if we look at something like Rangers of Shadow Deep, do you feel that sits on the fence between the two?
I think it probably does. I suppose the concept of a single player representing a single or embodying a single character and therefore making choices based on that character's um, propensities to do things and role playing slightly alters the picture because there's far less focus from what I can see on the concept of winning. Maybe that isn't the case so much from what I know of some role playing games, like perhaps Dungeons and Dragons, whereby there's a kind of being good at good Dungeons and Dragons perhaps is a thing. Whereas I quite like the fact that these RPGs that I've had a look at, it doesn't seem that it's about being good at it. So if you're the games master, you're just creating a storytelling environment for people to succeed or fail, but that's not particularly important. It's more about telling a compelling and accurate story so that the characters are behaving as they would. Whereas I suppose in a miniatures game, because it's a tabletop game and it feels like a board game and it has a sort of sense of victory conditions, then yes, you're controlling that group, but more in a sort of you're more acting as the general for that group, giving advice and guidance, trying to give commands that will be both beneficial to their attributes and their personalities to get the positive outcome. So maybe it's that kind of idea that in an RPG, you're not sort of general, you're not trying to be the best player you can be. You're trying to play the game with the greatest level of whatever that fancy word is. Is it verisimilitude? Is that the
Oh
right
yeah,
word?
very
Verisimilitude.
similitude. Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. So, so that idea of just trying to be kind of quite immersive and say, yes, I want to play this in an appropriate way so that my character is behaving, in the way that I believe them to behave. I think that's quite cool. Also, I like the idea of playing it with hidden agendas and to create friction and to create difficulty between people and to sort of as more of a social experiment to see how people start behaving when situations change around them. So yeah, no, I think it's really cool. I don't know enough about it to speak to it, to be honest. This is just my very layperson's way of looking at it, but certainly I'm kind of very attracted to the idea of it because I mean I always have read a lot, and I'm and it feels like it bridges that gap between literature and tabletop gaming really really nicely, and I'm sort of surprised I haven't found it before, but I think I always found it far too impenetrable whenever I vaguely seen any kind of there might have been some RPG books in Virgin Megastores or something, and you'd look at it and go, no idea what that is, and move on.
Aye, it's a really interesting concept, and now that you talk about it, I was seeing a lot of that come up when I did that sort of deep dive a few episodes ago on solo and skirmish, solo and co-op, sorry, wargaming.
Mm.
And I was using AI to get like a first draft of a lot of ideas or how things might work, and trying to ask it follow ups and really dig into some of this stuff. And one of the aspects that was most interesting to me was, let's look at our party or our army or our warband, whatever it is, and let's look at the internal dynamics there, because too often we
Yes.
just see these as this homogenous, we're all like fighting for the same thing, we're all united, and you just move them about. But thinking about, well, what if these people are together because there's short-term benefits of doing so, but they really don't like each other, or there's this major issue, or there's this long-term conflict. What would that look like? And what if two characters openly hate each other, but they have to fight together in the short term? So it got into all sorts of ideas about like relationship points and stuff, and it was really RPG heavy because it was talking about, well, really ways that there's just no way in the bookkeeping that you could attribute these points. Or there probably is, but it'd be a bit clunky. It would more just be a case of the folks that you were playing with saying, okay, based on what's happened in this game, I think this is probably going on between them right now, and it brings a whole different sort of dynamic to what's possible, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. What's quite interesting with these two books as well is how open. I always felt that the Joe McCulloch books are excellent. How he's very open-minded about how you might want to dismiss things and house rule things and so forth. But I mean, this is sort of on another level in terms of, I mean, there's a whole section here that says this is your game. You've purchased the game, it's yours to do with as you wish. The main rule is to have fun with it. Don't like a certain rule, remove it. Prefer to do something different, change it. It's kind of a very open approach to it. And this idea that, you might want to introduce kind of critical successes or critical failures. You might not. It doesn't matter. You might want to change what the target numbers are. You might not even want to roll dice at all. Just literally ask people what they want to do and just decide whether they fail or succeed. You can essentially run an interactive story with no system if you want, which is kind of bizarre because it's almost like undermining the concept of being a rules author. But they're almost written how somebody who's a what would the right word be? I'm trying to think of what the term is when someone really kind of an evangelist. It's almost like they're saying, right, this is what I like doing, and this is how you can do it. I really like that approach to presenting a set of rules. Just simply framing, we've done this, it's worked well for us, we've enjoyed it. You might want to copy some of these ideas. I feel like that's something that I'm really comfortable with. Probably wouldn't have been as a 10-year-old because I think you're looking for more definition and clarity on what it is you're supposed to do. But yeah, now I know more. I feel really comfortable about trying out some of these free-form ways of playing.
Yeah, there was a similar little disclaimer. I think it was in Brutal Quest, talking about this is your game and stuff. But it does make me think it would be refreshing to see a rule book where it's like, this is exactly how you need to play it. If you're not going to play it this way, if you're not going to use all these additional rules, get to fuck. And
this is my game.
Buy something else. Yeah,
I own the copyright on it. If you've got the audacity
you'll play this to the letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you get anything wrong, you need to start the game again. So,
not come round your house.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, well, that's the different way to do it. And this is not a miniature agnostic game. This is, you've got to buy my things and it won't work otherwise. I think there is a company that does this, actually, isn't there?
There is actually, yeah. Good old Mantic.
Yep.
Sorry if Ronnie's listening. I was actually trying to get Ronnie Renton on. I've not managed to
cool.
do that yet. Would love to speak to him, but
absolutely, yeah. I
not now
really
that
like
I've just insulted,
just flagged him off. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that's a way to get him on. Actually, I'll just do an episode about him, slag him off. And then he'll
Mantic is shite. Change my mind.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
he'll just ignore it because this is such a small fry show anyway.
Oh, is it? But, you didn't tell me that.
No, you wouldn't have came on. Well, your agent wouldn't have agreed to it, so.
No, I turned down Strictly.
Yeah, and reading the Argos Catalogue. So, any final are you a New Year's resolution person? Do you ever do any of those, or do you not bother?
So the last time that I got really heavily into saying about New Year's resolution it was the New Year's Eve on the 31st of December 2019, and I was saying to my family, this last decade it's been a bit difficult, but this next one it's going to be absolutely amazing. 2020, this is going to be the year. It was the year I turned 40, and it was just like, this is going to be absolutely the bee's knees. And then within a few weeks there was flooding, famine, disease, devastation, and the whole world was almost entirely destroyed. So from that point on, I've decided that maybe I'm better off not bringing ill fate up on the whole universe through my predictions, but to try and actually just be a bit more it's not easy to do it every day, but I'll try and be more deliberate and just enjoy things as they come up and just enjoy things for what they are, rather than trying to do everything or set myself goals that I would then become disappointed or annoyed with myself for failing. So no goals, no objectives, just other than just try and be a bit more deliberate and enjoy things a little bit more and try and be a bit happier each day. That's about it, really. So pretty basic, but achievable.
No, good wisdom. Make peace with the instability of the future and embrace the joys of the present, I suppose, might be a
It's very
kinda...
kind of zen on the art of motorcycle maintenance, isn't it? It's got that just enjoy doing things and the act of doing being of value in its own right. And you can't do everything, and that's okay.
Cool. Well, I hope you enjoy everything when it comes round. I know for sure that I'm getting a copy of Rogue Trader because it came. So
Excellent.
I look forward to leafing through that on Christmas morning with my tin of Kestrel Super Lager at 7 a.m. And I'm not even joking. So, aye. And it'll be cool to, check into the Discord. I'm sure folks will have a few new bits and bobs that they'll be sharing photos of as well. So
yeah, absolutely, it'd be good to see that.
Final shout out for the survey, bedroombattlefields.com/survey. Tell us what game you've been most focused on this year, and tell us about anything that you're keen to spend a bit of time on in 2024 as well. bedroombattlefields.com/survey. Thanks again for joining me, Mark. It's always good to have a pal on rather than trying to fly solo, especially when you're as bad at doing a podcast as I am, so I do appreciate it.
Oh no, it's really good fun every time.
And your power stayed on as well, because I know you've got a bit of a tornado down there, so that was handy.
Yeah, it seems okay. It seems to have slightly settled down. The washing line, however, is lying upside down on the lawn. I decided it was a good idea to put I put towels out, and then it's literally bent the washing line in half. One of the rotary ones, it's completely destroyed, so that wasn't a good move.
A good day for drying, like if you've got a really heavy coat or that, get that washed and get that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll see it flying past my window 500 miles up the road. So. All right, Mark, thanks again, and I'm sure we'll see you on the podcast again in the future.
Cool, take care, have a great Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thanks very much for listening to this episode of the Tabletop Miniature Hobby Podcast. If you enjoy the show, then please do share it with someone else you think might enjoy it too. And be sure to check out our Discord community of like-minded hobbyists, which you could find at bedroombattlefields.com/Discord. It'd be great to see you in there.